Welcome back to the Rabasha Family Podcast. Now, I am here at the headquarters of Professional Visa and Education Services. Now, I am fortunate enough to have the CEO and Director, Nish Sharma. How's it going?
Yeah, good. Eve, how are you?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
New Year, how was your New Year's?
Yeah, it was very good. Had a nice break with the family. Yeah, it was good.
Good. Well, look, we want to get straight to business.
Sure.
Since you've been on this show, we've had a lot of feedback, and a lot of people have been inspired by not only seeing your journey and your entrepreneurial creation of this business, but also the advice you have when it comes to migration law. So it's a big year in 2024. I want to start it off with, you guys have now had an expansion in Melbourne.
Yes. So we want to tick that box before we hit 2024. So late 2023, which is in December, we opened our brand new branch, which is owned and acquired by Professional Visa and Education Services. It's a Little Collins Street in Melbourne, which is called Exchange Tower. So we got our presence there in Melbourne. So if anyone aspiring clients or potential clients who would like to pursue their services with us, now the services is also available from Melbourne, like CBD in the heart of the city. Usually we choose the city location because it will be a lot easier for our clients to visit from the different part of the Victoria to come and meet our experienced consultant, which is supervised, which is in day-to-day in connection with senior visa advisory people and also lawyers, so that our advice that we provide in our Melbourne branch is creditable, and also the service we have provided will not be compromised compared to any other branches that we have around the globe.
Wow, yeah, I mean, it's pretty impressive, and I think Melbourne is a big city. You mentioned that there was a lot of data intelligence coming from Melbourne. Was it inquiries about migration?
Yes, so we do have our own data intelligence team who actually feeds us the information every month. So we get a monthly report. So when we are looking at a monthly reports, it's a no-brainer because our first, demand was in Sydney. Obviously, it's a no-brainer because our head office is located in Sydney and I'm based here. But then our second famous location where people were trying to book an appointment with us was from Victoria. So it was a long due strategy or long due plan that we should have the branches over there, but it's just that because of the time constraint and finding the right people to run the show, it took us a little bit of a time, but here we are in 2024, full and operating Monday to Friday from heart of the city, from Melbourne.
Wow, that's amazing. And also to see your social media presence, the expansion, it is really a huge future and a big year for professional visa education.
Absolutely. And we look forward to provide the same quality service from our Melbourne branch. And I think because the Melbourne being such a big city and Victoria being such a big state, there's a huge demand for a professional people advising people in terms of how to secure the permanent residency or even stay in Australia, and especially a lot of challenging years in terms of migration strategies along our way. So it's very relevant for us to be available there for our clients so that they don't miss out on the right advice, so that they can actually leverage the time they have in their favor in order to secure something before the visa runs out.
And it's a very emotional topic. This is people have dreams to come and live in Australia or to be able to get your permanent residency. That feeling that you guys provide for people, like we saw your testimonial with the clients that you had, that feeling of being in Australia for so long and not having that paperwork, and Professional Visa guiding them through that process.
Yes. I mean, this is our job, and this is what we do from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Is we hear the problems, and we're here to just listen to their problems and go through the discovery questions to identify if there is any gaps that we can sort of identify to fulfill. And then, we've been here in the industry for long enough to sort of ascertain what is that they're lacking on, and then be able to navigate through this complex immigration process for them as a pilot taking through the turbulence for them, so with assurance that we're going to do the safe landing.
Wow, I like that. That was smooth.
Yeah.
That was smooth. I like that. But again, also what I hear in that is the spirit of entrepreneurship. What you just said there is we have problems that they come to us with, and
yes,
we work out on how can we fix the problem for them. That's the spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no such thing as We have this one rules or legislative requirements that governments are looking for, and you have another client which is a direct fit for that. And there's never such thing, you know, that happens in the perfect world, but then not in the world of migration. So a lot of people are too far off the information, and they're not connected to the new policies and new rules is coming up. And it's sometimes it's more about just giving them the knowledge and awareness, and sometimes it's more about just deviating them and their focus. So at least if they're aiming for Jupiter, and if we aim it properly, at least we ended up in Mars. You know what I mean? So it's our job is to actually like really deviate people in the right direction.
Guide them through the
absolutely.
Like you say, migration is it's a process, not
yes.
a problem. You know.
Yes, and a lot of people get overwhelmed with this process, but then it's like it's like a bird trying to migrate from east coast to west coast in the winter period. There is no shortcut to that. They have to take that long flight, and during that process, there's going to be a lot of challenging factors like wind and weathers, and the hunters out there and the predators out there looking for them, and they have to just navigate through that process. There is no other way. There's no alternative. So that's why our client needs to understand that migration is a process, and there is no shortcut to this, and we have to go through this process. And if we have someone sort of navigating them from the beginning, then that whole journey of migration can be a little bit smoother, because there might be some shortcuts, and there might be some mitigation of the risk factors, because you're not traveling blindly. You're kind of guided and supervised by someone who's already been there before. So we are almost like that savior in middle, where we transport, or we sort of navigate people from one end to another end, but we'll give that reassurance to our client that we will make sure to hold your hand until we'll drop you safely to the other side of the world.
Wow, powerful. Okay, so let's get to the order of business. We saw on your TikTok page, the Professional Visa Education, where we have the migration strategy 2024. I think a lot of people need some direction in this.
Yes.
And you gave a lot of information. How can we break that simply? How can we approach this strategy and the people who are facing problems with migration?
Absolutely. I mean, look, this strategy was something planned beginning of 2023. There was a migration summit, which was kind of held by the Department of Home Affairs Minister Andrew Giles and his team. And some of these changes, this was about 169 pages worth of recommendations were made from industry people, from consultation with the unions and then the employers, and then there were a lot of stakeholders involved in ascertaining what is the current migration situation in Australia. And this is the good thing that our ministers did, as soon as they got the, as soon as they win the election. And I think the greatest thing was that actually listened to the industry, and they've sort of find out what's happening. So with this government, one thing that I can confidently say is they're very much connected to the reality, like what's happening in Australia. So I think the strategy was built around the situation and the problems that we have at the moment. And obviously all changes are big, and all changes are something that we cannot accept straight away. All changes are hard to sort of absorb and understand. So I think our job is to sort of break these changes into bite-sized chunks so that people can absorb and understand what's coming along their way. And it's not that everyone needs to know everything, it's just that the people need to know their part, their area, So I think the changes was required, because we had this older system, older process for a long time, which kind of created overhaul of the visa processing in Department of Home Affairs as well. And also it created some gaps in migration industry, and also in terms of visa processing, and also some of the visa types were kind of obsolete as well, because they were not used as much as before, because why it was designed and how it was designed was not leveraged properly. So coming to the topic of some changes, some migration strategy 2024, what is that incorporated with? Well, it has like a 4 major divisions that they wanted to look into it, starting from the student visa cohort, like international student visa cohort, to graduate visa cohort, and then we have the general skill migration cohort, and then the employer sponsorship cohort. So it's kind of listed. These are the main 4 visa subclasses that is kind of catering 90% of the people that are currently in Australia anyway. So and they've touched all these 4 main visa categories in the strategy. So obviously, to your question, Eve, it is a big changes, big strategies that has been proposed. But one thing our viewers and our clients need to understand is, just because it's in strategy at the planning level doesn't mean everything will be implemented immediately or everything will be implemented at all, because sometimes we do have a backlash from the industry people, and then the government has to listen to some of the pain point from the relevant stakeholders, and they might never be executed as well. So the one thing that I would like to reiterate again to my people, my viewers, is that not everything will be implemented. Not everything has been implemented as yet. So this all changes will come in a staging program. So this is all wide and clear in the strategy documents that is readily available in the internet for people to go and have a look. I know it might be quite extensive documents for people to review, but I'm here to sort of break it down into bite-sized chunk for the people to understand. And just to be cautious about the time, what I want to do is I wanted to talk about the few key issues that is that may potentially impact our client that is currently in Australia.
Okay, so like when we break it down to smaller chunks, when you talked about the international students and the cohorts, so what is the migration strategy, or what does that look like now for international students wanting to study here in Australia?
Absolutely. Now, international students has been backbone of Australian economy. It is the second biggest economy generator for Australia because we recruit a lot of international students from various parts of the world. So up until now, student visa, or even till date, student visa has been assessed on the genuine temporary entrant criteria, which is called Direction 69, Migration Regulation 500.212. So what does that really talks about is we need to demonstrate that you're a genuine student. So which means you need to satisfy what was the reasoning for you to choose this particular course, why Australia, why this particular university. And a main component is, once you establish your qualification and education in Australia, when you go back home, how you're going to utilize this particular qualification that you've obtained from Australia into the, your personal growth or the growth of the country, or what's your intention when you go back. And as a part of that genuine temporary entrant criteria, people need to demonstrate they have enough assets for them to go back and look after those assets. They have family ties, they have economic ties, they have employment ties and whatnot. So that's changing. That's the biggest thing that has been there for a long period, and now it's going to change to genuine student test. So as opposed to genuine temporary entrant, so it will be replaced by genuine student test. Now, how does the genuine student test will look like has not been executed yet by the Department of Home Affairs, but just putting some logical sense around what is Department of Home Affairs is potentially looking at is, instead of now you demonstrating how you want to take away this particular qualification and skills from Australia into your back home, they have actually reversed the whole psychology to now prove whatever the studies that you're going to make and do in Australia, how you're going to benefit Australia. So they've actually refocused the whole thing back to Australia, which kind of makes sense because doesn't matter how much of evidence or requirements you want to put in there, try to justify that you're a genuine student who would like to return back home after study. Well, majority of them are not returning back home anyway. So whatever the justification that we were doing during the student visa process, so it seems to be just ticking the box activities at the Department of Home Affairs, just to make sure that they have met the legislative requirements of genuine temporary entrant. But now genuine student test will make it more practical, to be honest, because majority of the people would like to continue to stay in Australia or apply for permanent residency. So now the test will be more around, tell me why you want to come to Australia, and why did you choose this particular course, and how do you think Australia will benefit from you in terms of choosing this particular course for Australia and Australian economy. So it will change, it will reverse the whole thing. So that means it will be much easier for a student.
Hey guys, this is Eve Rabasha here at the Just Co offices, made for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. You see, we're living in the greatest time to be alive, where you can use the power of social media, where you can get your voice out there, your brand. How can you put yourself in the front position? How can you use and utilize a media network to be able to build your brand? That is the mistake so many people make. They don't know how to build brand. They don't know how to use their voice and the art of communication to storytell. We have that platform, the Rabasha Family Podcast, made for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs, where you could utilize the power of social media to get your voice out there. You're gonna either do two things. You're gonna keep scrolling, or you're gonna take action and create history with the revolutionists. You have one choice. Don't be like the 98%. Take action now.
Who is looking at coming to Australia, they can potentially choose subject that is directly related to permanent residency before they have to, go for a relevant subject. For example, if they have done accounting in their home country, so their usual segue or automatic segue would be to go and opt in for Masters of Accounting, which has no value in Australia at this point of time, because there's too many accountants, very less with the experience, which means there is always going to be labour shortage, because there's never going to be fulfilled. But then we have all these accounting graduates that sitting in overhaul, not knowing where they stand at the moment. So because that, again, it falls back to the original steps of genuine temporary entry criteria, because these people were compelled to choose the relevant master's degree on their subject that they did back home, because they need to fulfill the genuine temporary entry criteria. But now these people could potentially choose some other areas like social work or nursing or teaching or marine science or whatever you want to, name it, that is in deficiency in Australia. And then they will be able to prove, I picked this particular course because I think after finishing the course, I can contribute to the labour shortage and skill shortage in that particular industry, ultimately contributing to the economy of Australia. So that's the biggest change coming. Now, I don't think I'll go into nitty-gritty of, the ministerial instruction that has already come out, which kind of tells the Department of Home Affairs how the student visa will be processed in pecking orders. So they'll prioritize someone who's got the level 1 universities with a higher education, and followed by the diplomas and whatnot. So there is the instruction given by the ministers in terms of Department of Home Affairs processing criteria, which one will be processed quicker or faster. So that nitty-gritty is all out there on the internet. But then I think I just want to give you guys a bit of a philosophy of where we're heading in terms of international student space.
You know why it's fascinating, and this is a great conversation, because a lot of people that I've met overseas, even for example in Kenya, students, accounting, all these different degrees, they want to come and study here in Australia. But this migration strategy, and from what you're saying, this information, a lot of people need to hear this, and it's valuable, because when we look at the student visa, so you're saying they're changing that approach of show me like the finances in your account, how much you have, like you see all of those background details. They're changing those things, so now it's coming into a test.
Financial capacity might still well and truly be in place, because then you need to demonstrate that you can afford to come to Australia and you can afford the course that you wanted to study in Australia. But I think the philosophy of, are you a genuine student will change to, are you a student that Australia needs?
can we benefit
So
from it?
if you listen to that phrase, that's what they have changed logistically in terms of the legislation.
Yeah, so how do you coming and studying in Australia basically does it benefit our economy?
That's exactly right. And before we have to prove how's this study from Australia going to benefit your economy of your home country, but I think we have reversed that. And that's what the immigration law has always been about anyway. It's about Australia and Australians. So the focus has come back to Australia, which is, I think we welcome that changes, because sitting here and absorbing that genuine temporary entrant test was daunting, because majority of the students genuinely don't want to return back home. So, and then here we are trying to prove they will go back home. So it's kind of contradicting to what's happening and what people want versus what government wants us to prove. So we all are masking each other, but then now this will be more real. This will be connecting to the reality, which is, I think, it's very welcoming changes.
Welcoming changes. And so now also for students, especially international, anywhere in the world, if they also want to come and study in Australia, they have professional visa to help them.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So, and this is where our expertise come into play. We always put student visa as our third or fourth, options in the list, because we would like to ascertain if they already have the skills that we can do the assessment and bring them on a direct skill migration scheme, because that's what Australia really needs. Someone with the skills coming into Australia and really closing the gap of that particular industry, especially in a regional area, some labor shortage, and city area, some skill shortage.
What are some top skilled industries that Australia is looking for?
Construction industry is crying out loud at the moment. There is not enough construction workers, bricklayers, construction project managers, carpenters, civil draft person, civil engineers. I mean, there's a huge shortage in the construction industry, especially this is the aftermath of the COVID-19, because there's a lot of construction sites, there was a lot of development sites where kind of put on hold until this whole pandemic is over. But now, as soon as it's over, and all this global crisis about the internal wars and stuff like that happening at the moment is also impacting on the materials coming into Australia and everything like that. So the construction industry is crying out loud. Similarly, health allied sectors are also crying out loud for the people, because our aging population is another problem that Australia has to face, because people are not dying enough, which also means they need to be in some sort of care facilities, and someone needs to look after them. Which means, well, thanks to the advanced medical system, because now people are living longer, but at the same time we also have to deal with the situation, how we're going to look after these people who are in a fragile state of mind, and also they need a lot of caring and nurturing. So aging sector, registered nurse, doctors, some of the hospitals in our regional area are padlocked because we don't have enough doctors and nurses in our regional areas. Our NDIS funding system is one of the best in the world, and thanks to the Liberal government for introducing all of this. But then I think with the growing demand of the NDIS disability sector, I think there's another huge area that we also need people supporting our industry around that area. The other areas like agriculture, environmental scientist, consultant, agriculture consultant, agriculture area on its own is kind of suffering because they don't have enough workers coming in, and they're suffering in terms of getting a frontline worker. So forget about like the one tier up. They're already struggling to find that another tier, which is why we have some Department of Home Affairs had some labour agreements with Pacific Island countries. So and that seems to be very small numbers are attracting. So I think agriculture is another area that we're crying out loud. Education is another big one as well. So we're going to have a shortage of early childhood educators, primary teachers and secondary teachers for the next 5 years. So list goes on, like, to be honest, and we haven't even started touching on the marine science, because Australia has such a gateway to Antarctica and all that kind of stuff, but then there are not enough people that we've been able to entice to come and study marine science and marine marine related topics. So we've not been able to track all of this. So there's a huge gap in, I mean, whatever the area that I've talked about is something that we're already crying out loud, but then also we have to be prepared for emerging areas as well. For example, cybersecurity, fintechs, data science, data intelligence, artificial intelligence. So these are all emerging. And we know that we're already going to have a shortage of people in that area as well. So there's two areas to look for. One is the current loophole, current gaps in the market, and then another one is what do we anticipate in the future is something we need to cater for as well. So the government needs to make sure that there is a fine balance between now and the future.
And the future, because there's a lot of emerging markets that are happening. And then, like you said, a shortage of a lot of workers with post-COVID, also work from home. People don't really want to be out there. So with the migration strategy, for people international, outside of where you guys, I know you have expansion in Nepal as well.
Yes.
You guys have branches there. Outside of Nepal, how can people get in touch with Professional Visa if they're from America, if they're from Africa? Because I feel there's so many countries out there who need this information and want to come to Australia. And from what you're saying, it's very possible there's a lot of opportunities on coming to Australia.
Yes. Well, look, in my experience for last 7-8 years working in this industry and visiting majority of the other part of the world, I've realized we live in the best part of the world. And I think everyone wants to come to Australia for many things, for education, for safety, security, medical system, the stable government. There's a lot of things that makes Australia a very attractive destination. So it's virtually not possible for us to start catering all the inquiries around the world. So what we have done is we have actually created a paid consultation, which means people around the world can actually connect with our reception, our admin staff, and they can book in half an hour paid consultation, so which is something we can provide over the phone. We can call any country, doesn't matter, so we can provide that half an hour. The reason why we want to make it as a paid is we only wanted to make sure that we secure our time to someone who's more serious about coming to Australia. And because, as I said, everyone wants to come to Australia. So, but then that also puts us in a vulnerable position because we cannot really help out everyone who would like to come to Australia. So there's a process that people can follow, which means they can go and book in online and then pay for the consultation, and we can help them out.
Cool. So in the link in the description, I can put that contact for you guys to go and contact. Hey guys, I'm here at the headquarters of Provisa Services, where you can get first-class professional service. You see, life is all about the service that you provide other people. How can you obsess over other people's problems? How could you obsess in the finer details in order to achieve your dreams? As a first-generation African immigrant, know what it's like to live here in Australia. The beauty, the life, being able to see my loved ones every single day. And we know so many other people want to be able to share and cultivate that experience. Well, here at Provisa Services, you get just that, a family environment where you're able to make your dreams come true. Make sure to follow Provisa Services and the Rabasha Family Podcast. So to wrap it up, is there anything else that you want to just announce or talk a little bit about before we head out?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, I wanted to touch on the key skill area, and before that, I want to talk about the some announcement from the government about the people being restricted from applying to international student visa from the graduate visa. So that's the part a lot of people are panicking about, and I think I want to touch on that. And I want to talk about some skill demand visas that's coming along our way. So the first one is there has been a lot of media announcement, and also it's written in the migration strategy that the government is kind of looking at restricting people from applying to student visa from the graduate 485 graduate visa. So after completing the graduate visa, people will be restricted to go to another visa. So this is something not set on the black letters law. There's no policies out yet. However, some of the institutes like higher educations, universities are already rejecting or declining application that is coming off the 485 visas. So we have to be a little bit careful and also start planning in advance in relation to their longevity in Australia, because 485 is the golden visa for our aspiring migrants to utilize this particular visa period in order to secure a permanent residency. And people usually run out of this visa and they will go and apply for another international student visa or whatever the temporary visa to prolong their stay in Australia until they sort out the permanent residency. So even though the whole policy is not set on the stone, there is no black letters law, but again, I would like to urge our viewers and clients to start coming and book in some consultation with us, because early planning is always good. So we need to start planning that as soon as possible. Even though, the government is not proactively cancelling the visa, but we have seen some visa refusals coming out already for people who is coming off the 408 COVID visa and 485. Therefore, we need to plan a little bit earlier. In this particular topic is very important, so I would like to highlight that. Now, the second topic is skill in demand. So again, there might be some refusals. There might be some constraint for the graduate visa to move on to international student visa. But then the government is also making some area quite relaxing. For example, they're bringing up the skill in demand visa, which comes in a 3 new tier. So the tier 1 is essential skills pathway, which means if you have this is kind of open to the people who's making $70,000 per year, and they have got the skill assessment in their nominated occupation, then they can apply for the permanent residency. Similarly, there's another one called core skills pathway, which means if they make $135,000 per annum, then they can apply for permanent residency without even a skill assessment. And the third tier is a specialized pathway, which is more of a pathway for aged care workers and all that kind of stuff. So they can be earning below $70,000 and they may still be able to apply for permanent residency. Not to forget, so this was particularly written on the strategy about the pathway for international student, skilled international student gaining a clearer pathway to permanent residency. We don't know what does that look like, but then again, even the government is kind of closing a door for people to apply for another international student visa after 485, but they are also opening another door for the international students to kind of directly apply for permanent residency. So there is a skill demand visa that is coming in the 3 tiers, and then there's a separate statement the government has actually said that international student will have a clearer pathway to permanent residency. That is yet to be ascertained in terms of what does that look like. It's not well articulated on the strategy documents, but that one is waiting game. We'll probably find out soon about this. In terms of other area for skilled migrants, employer sponsorship visa can be a good pathway for people to start looking at that as an option. Employer sponsorship is the division itself. We have already started seeing that they've started operating much faster, much quicker. The applications are getting out much quicker than what it was before, which means there is a clearer pathways for people to apply for permanent residency through a sponsorship pathway as well. Being very cautious about the timeline, I just want to talk about a student visa pathways again, because the government is putting some strict compliance on education providers who are actually facilitating vocational courses in a name of just running a business as opposed to running an education industry. So there will be some strict measures coming around to close those education providers in a means of refusing the student visa application, which means the government intention is not to go and proactively start closing all of these vocational providers who are not doing the good job in Australia. But then what are they doing is they are reversing the whole cycle by refusing the student visa application for those kind of education providers, which means they're sort of planning to automatically bankrupt those education providers. So there are space to watch out for the international students as well. Like, they want to make sure they're applying the international student visa in a reputable education providers who actually provides the education, not just the completion letter. So that's another important part for international students to start thinking about. And again, there has been some raise in English requirements. Nitty-gritty is published in the Department of Home Affairs website. The reason for the rise in English test is because, again, to eliminate those shonky providers to start bringing the people in a name of international student visa, and as soon as the student comes in, they started working in Australia as opposed to sitting in the classroom and studying in Australia. So these are the main thing I wanted to talk about in today's video, Eve.
Cool, thanks so much. And just real quick, for the people who don't know, what is a 485 visa? Because it sounds very important, and even someone like me, I may not understand that clearly. So yeah, what is a 485 visa?
Okay, so if you have there are two streams to the 485. One's the graduate stream, another one's a post-study work stream. So post-study work stream is the opportunity for international students to go and seek employment in their nominated occupation post qualification, and it's only available for bachelor's degree or higher. Whereas the graduate stream is available for some selected occupation, for trade occupation, for example, chefs, can apply for graduate visas, and any occupation that is listed for the graduate stream, they can opt into 18 months graduate visa. In this visa, the student will have a full-time work rights. All they have to do is maintain their health insurance. They have a multiple travel, which means this is the golden period for them to start working on their permanent residential journey, start getting their hands dirty in their nominated occupation, start exploring Australia. So this is the golden period because it's kind of like they don't have to study, they can work full time. So it's like a work visa for post study. It's a work visa similar to UK. Have that post-study work visa as well. This is like a post-study work visa for Australia.
So for example, if someone finished, like let's say something like accounting, you just in an international country, you finish your degree. You said minimum bachelor's, right? So you finish your degree, and I may not have enough work experience because let's say I just graduated. Can they come now to Australia through the 485?
No, these are predominantly only for students who have graduated from Australia.
Oh, from Australia.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So it's only students
exactly
here
right.
from Australia. Yeah. So you came, you studied here, you've graduated here, and then now you can get the 485 visa.
There used to be a 476 visa for the people who actually study overseas to come on the 485, but they're actually putting a stop sign to that as well.
Okay, so they're putting a stop sign.
Predominantly 485 is for the people who is actually in Australia, have done their education in Australia.
Yeah, but still, it's still like for people who, let's say, who come from overseas, and then they study here in Australia, they finish their graduate, and then now they have that.
That's correct.
Visa,
absolutely. Yep.
And then you got experts like you guys to take care of it.
100%.
Okay, I think that was a great conversation.
No worries, Eve. Thank you so much. It was always a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, 2024. Yeah. Okay, let's do this. What is your 6 month? What's
for our clients, and also as I said in my previous video as well. As a legal person, my personal goal is to also start exploring the horizon into other area of law, for example, criminal law, construction, property law and whatnot. So yeah, that will be my personal goal for this year. And then I've already started Melbourne branch, so I'm not looking forward to do too many projects this year. So I guess whatever the projects I've started 2023, I think this year will be more about nurturing and giving them water and the whatever the food they need to grow.
Awesome. Just real quick, I saw you brought in your son the other day.
Yes.
Dressed in the suit. Yeah. How does he like come into the office?
Yeah, so he was very excited to come to work because he's on a school holiday. So he spent some time with me. He started consulting with some clients, and then I told him to make some notes. And I think he's only 7 years old, and I think my philosophy is to get them in early so that they know exactly what their father's doing, so that by the time he's 10 or 15. Well, I was surprised he always started talking about visa subclasses when he was 7. And I was asking all these questions about what was the situation of this particular client. And he started answering me all about, she only had the visa until May 2024. And I said, what did daddy do then? So what do you think will be the solution? And he goes, we just got to extend her a student visa because she's still studying. And that blew my mind because, she was still studying and she needs to extend the visa. And it was a nice and quick solution for the client, but that he already understands the concept of visa and citizenship. And then we had a very long-winded conversation on the way home because he didn't understand the concept of why someone needs visa to stay in a country. And that was quite deep for me to answer that question, like why we still need visa to travel around the world, because we live in one world, but we have already sort of set up a territory, and then we've designed things like visa. And that was a very deep question from my son to say, why do people need visa to come to Australia? And I had the legal answer for that, but then I didn't have the philosophical answer for that one. So he got me there.
What was the philosophical answer?
Philosophical answer would be more of a fact that I don't know. I think he was more coming from the angle saying, why do people need? Why people are constrained from travel from one place to another place? There shouldn't be any discrimination. There shouldn't be any law that's preventing free human rights to move wherever they want to move. But again, we human have actually put some barriers and constraints in place. So that's what he was coming from. But then my legal answer was like, no, because we are protecting Australia from people coming in and, you know, taking away. It's almost like, you know, if you have an intruder coming into your house, they're not welcome. But if someone asks you that I'm coming for a dinner and you invited the guests, so they get the visa to stay in our house until they have a dinner and all that kind of stuff. And that's how I sort of made him understood what's the visa is all about. And he asked me why he doesn't need a visa, and I said, you're a citizen here. And I'm like, and then he started asking, why am I so privileged to have the citizen? Then I sort of started talking about, because you inherited that from your parents and all that. So it was quite an interesting conversation.
Wow, I think it's so fascinating. I just want to touch on two things real quick. So like I had this conversation with my dad, and he was saying that like everywhere you go there's trees, there's earth. You know, people say get out of my country, but it's like this is God's land. This is, you know, everywhere is the same. Everywhere you go there's a sky, there's trees. So also like for your son, you know, that imagination, a child has that curiosity, but why? And I think to be able to talk with your son and have that, you know, explanation, but also have, you know, two answers for him as well. And then again, like for you to bring your son in here, I love that, because it's like for your son, like your dad's your hero. So for him to come in and see what you do, and that's why he's observant, he sees what you do, he sees the suit, and you know, he was also looking fresh.
Yeah,
so like
he wanted to go and get a suit just so he can look exactly like me.
Oh, so he said, can we go?
Yes.
Oh, really?
He actually encourages his mum to go and buy a suit, and then he actually deliberately chooses a plain shirt, because I always wear a plain shirt.
There you go.
Yeah.
No, I think there's a lot of life lessons that I think people can learn from that, and you know, I guess just exploring their imagination, you know, and you know, you like you said, teach them young. The same for me. For my kids, they're going football training young. They're seeing me coming to work, because I think to be able to pass down your legacy.
Absolutely.
You know, I know you're watching this video, but real quick, please guys, please make sure you take the time to like, share and subscribe. Go and hit the subscribe button so we can keep giving you guys content, so you guys can be notified as soon as we drop some news and information that's really going to help you. And then another thing, guys, and by the way, subscribing, it doesn't cost any money, nothing, no dollars. Just go in there, hit the subscribe button. Again, Spotify, make sure you download our episodes on Spotify. We are exclusive to Spotify because we are getting that deal. You know what I'm saying? We're getting that $1 million deal. So if you want to listen to the Rubasha Family Podcast, you have to go on Spotify.
If you really enjoyed this video, make sure to click here, and I'm sure you're going to love that one.